Junoon came about from our natural progression of work, of wanting to reach out to communities and people in much more dynamic ways, of seeding a true love and respect and a need for the arts in your life. And that's what we're doing. These weekly addas are where the curious gather. People who want to know, who may not be connoisseurs, or who may know something about that artist, but may want to know some more. And they get a chance to hear the artist speak in a way that they very rarely get to speak, which is really the main curatorial feature of what we do. Well, firstly, theatre in India is just this huge, vast variety of stuff. It's not easy to say what theatre in India is. Urban theatre is one thing. Bombay itself has 4 different major languages and more, but 4 major languages in which theatre is done. And so right from commercial theatre to the more avant-garde experimental theatre to the mainstream. And then you have theatre of traditional forms from all over the country, which are living, wonderful, engaged with their audience forms of theatre. I believe that, strangely enough, technology having taken over our lives has sort of made us insular and introverted in a strange way, though yet we have thousands of friends on Facebook and Twitter and all the rest of it. It's disconnected us from each other, and in a strange way, I believe the young people are coming out and seeking live engagement more and more, whether it's comedy shows, whether it's going to a bar, whether it's live music, or whether it's coming to the theatre and paying for it. And so that's what's a really interesting shift. Oh, my grandparents, my parents, I grew up listening to stories of their travels. I never heard the traditional bedtime stories that kids usually hear. I heard either stories, really gory stories of Shakespeare's plays, and to date I go to sleep, I always sleep with my hand over my ear because Hamlet's father was poisoned by poison in his ear. So these are the stories I grew up with. But I grew up with stories of 2 traveling theatre companies, both my grandparents, Geoffrey Kendall with Shakespeareana and Prithvi Kapoor with Prithvi Theatres, and their true travels, their true adventures. It wasn't just about their theatre was their life. They would get up in their morning and they would do riyaz, and they would exercise, and they would set up. So the actors did everything. I mean, from my dad and mom would go out and hand out pamphlets of announcing their show outside cinema houses and they'd go around with bhopus announcing the show from a rickshaw across the city. You had to advertise your show, to putting up the set and putting up lights and making lights out of dalda tins. I mean, my father's done all that. And people don't imagine that that's possible when they do theatre today. It's become much more sort of slightly compartmentalized, which is sad. But I think the joy for me of theatre is that you are this family that lives together, and you live and breathe and eat and sleep theatre, and the life of a traveling theatre company and the adventures that unfolds for you. So I would say that there is huge potential. It's just such a struggle. It's such a struggle. There is no support system. There is no infrastructure. In the West, you have, in Europe, you have so much more, right? From training to Medicare to facilities that help you understand as a new theatre group how you can exist, which festivals you can go to, how you can build your audiences, where you can perform. There is just so much more of an infrastructure set out for you there. Whereas here, we're just swimming against the tide constantly, and therefore, we're much more innovative. We're much more imaginative into how we can create our world and our opportunities. And I think the shift is that today, in the last 10 years, I would say, there's a younger generation of theatre workers out there who want to make it their life. This is their primary goal. They will do film, and they will do workshops, and they will do voiceovers. They'll try not to do TV, because that forms really bad habits, but they want to do theatre. And this is where their heart is, and it's growing, and so that's wonderful. Well, theatre in most of its forms is not a singular act. It's very few people. There are a few people who create theatre on their own. Most often it is definitely something where at least then you need a technician, you need one other person, somebody to put the lights on or the sound or some other person. And the fact that you need this beautiful group of people, and for me the most exciting part is the process of rehearsal and that safe space that you create in an empty room where you just play, you take risks, you do things that you would push your limits because you've got this group of people who are all on the same journey and the same path with you. And then, of course, the thrill of performing in front of an audience who also is there with such a spirit of generosity, because they want to you never get an audience who sits there saying, okay, we're really not interested in being here. You know, you get an audience always who says, we want something beautiful to happen. And so they come with a spirit of generosity. And of course, if you break that faith and you show them something awful, then that's really sad. But I think that that's the beauty of theatre, the fact that it is this live, engaged act and forces the audience to participate. It's not passive, it's truly active. What does copyright actually mean for our community? What are the legal implications of censorship or various things we may be attacked by or faced? You know, I don't know if censorship is something that's going to exist. And we just have to be strategic. We have to know how to work it. So you have to always have 2 or 3 friends on the censor board who you can find, make sure your script goes to them. I mean, there are ways in which one has to work things out. And I think that we have to stop being bigoted ourselves, you know. We have to build a society that I've had friends of mine who were really against a lot of censorship towards theatre, and then they were celebrating the fact that a play that was totally against any of their sensibilities was banned. And you can't do that. If you really believe censorship needs to be gotten rid of, then it needs to be gotten rid of across the board. And we need to be able to engage with each other in disagreement and say that we don't agree with what you're saying and your point of view, but we need to do it in a civilized human fashion, not in banning things, not in tearing things down, not in killing people. That is such a tricky question. I was thinking about it the other day. I can really love absurd theatre to very realistic theatre. I could love a play that is in a completely realistic form. It depends on, for me, what it has to have is truth. So it can be extremely stylized and extremely avant-garde. But if there's no truth in it, it falls flat on its face. Whenever I'm really depressed, I pick up Jean Anouilh's Antigone. And I think it's perhaps just that spirit of this crazy girl who just has to do what she believes is right, against the sheer knowledge of knowing she's going to die for it. And it's just, for me, beautiful. I love the words, I love the way he's written it, I love the characters in it, and I keep going back to that play. It's very strange. Of course, I go back to Shakespeare's sonnets as well, because they're just so beautiful. My free time. Well, my free time is usually actually a new thing for me I'd like to spend my free time at home doing nothing at all. But I'm usually, we're off gallivanting all the time across the globe into wonderful wilderness with my family. So because of Valmik and his work with wildlife, I'm really lucky, and my son is really lucky that he's grown up experiencing the most amazing wilderness on this globe. We just came back from Masai Mara, but last year I had an extravagant year. I turned 50, so I said, I'm going to celebrate right through the year. So I took my family, my brothers and my cousins from England, my British family. We went off to this beautiful island called the Mafia Island off Tanzania, and that was absolutely stunning. Watch it. Watch as much as you possibly can. Seek it out. You know, I think if you're passionate about something, you've got to just seek it out in any way you can. If you can't afford watching it, you know, I used to do this in England. I couldn't afford theatre tickets, and you go and get a job as an usherer, and you usher people in, and you get to see the plays for free. You work backstage. You do anything you can to just get close to the world that you want to be part of. And one day you'll find your path in that world. But there's no fix it. I mean, I know that as an actor, if you want to be an actor, you definitely need training because there are skills that you need, and I realized that sort of the nasty way by knowing that I didn't know how to work, and then I said, oh my God, what have I done? And I then went to drama school pretty late in life, but it was, you do need training, or you are lucky enough, like my parents and my grandparents, to train on the job. So you muddle your way through working, but work and work hard.